Thousands of residents across New South Wales who have been affected by severe flooding will have access to immediate financial relief after a natural disaster was declared for 23 local government areas. Joining us live now is the Federal Emergency Management Minister, Murray Watt. Appreciate your time, Minister. As I mentioned, these 23 local government areas can now access help. What does that mean in practical terms for residents who are impacted? What do they need to do to access that support?
Yeah, hi Ash. What that means is that federal and state disaster support is now available and has now been declared. We did that late last night as a way of making sure that we were acting quickly. I think one of the things that we've tried to do throughout these floods is act very cooperatively between the federal and state governments and act early. And we've done that again now by announcing this kind of disaster assistance at a very early stage. So there's now a wide range of support available for individuals, for families, for small businesses, farmers, community groups, local and state governments. And in simple terms, the easiest thing for people to do is to go to the website www.recovery.gov.au and that will list all of the assistance available and who's eligible for what.
And what about local councils? They're obviously the ones at the front line here, trying to clean up, trying to restore damaged roads. Is the funding flowing to them? Are the resources there for those local councils trying to get on with the job?
That will certainly now start flowing now that we have activated that disaster assistance. At this stage, the assistance that's available for local governments is twofold. So there is money that's available to essentially reimburse them for the costs that they've incurred in providing emergency relief and recovery to their communities, but also money will now be available for some of the more basic repairs to infrastructure, whether it be roads, bridges, culverts, those kinds of things. I would expect that going forward, the New South Wales Government will come forward with another ask on behalf of both the state and local governments for more major infrastructure repairs. That will obviously take a little bit of time for them to work out the extent of the damage before they can come forward with that. But last night's activation means that there is now money available for those 23 local councils to do some of the immediate repairs that they need to undertake.
So, Minister, at the federal level, what else can you do at this point? Are there requests for more manpower on the ground? Are there plans to send even more Defence Force personnel there to help?
We've certainly made clear to the New South Wales Government that we're very happy to listen to any request that they make, and we have honoured every request that the New South Wales Government has made of us, and again we've acted very quickly in doing so. We have already announced the activation of 200 ADF personnel to assist with evacuation orders, with sandbagging and inevitably with the cleanup. We've also made 2 ADF helicopters available. They are specialised aircraft, particularly useful in nighttime situations, and I understand they have actually performed a couple of nighttime rescues. And I'm happy to say that last night we also agreed to a further request from the New South Wales Government for an additional 50 ADF troops. So in total we now have 250 ADF personnel approved and they're available for the use of the New South Wales Government in addition to those helicopters. But look, if there are further requests, then we'd obviously be happy to talk with the New South Wales Government about that.
Minister, I assume you've spent the last few days in briefings about the floods. What are the experts telling you about the scale of this flooding event, how it compares to other recent floods we've seen in the region?
Yeah, I've been in constant contact with federal and state agencies and the State Minister, Steph Cook, about this really since late last week, and I can't fault the advice that I've been provided and other people have been provided as well. I've obviously also stayed in contact with the Prime Minister while he's been overseas, spoke to him as soon as he got back into range when he was driving through rural Poland yesterday, and I'm actually going into a briefing again with him shortly. So basically, in terms of where things are at, in most areas it seems that the floodwaters have peaked. We do need to keep an eye on some areas, particularly around the Hawkesbury Nepean, where we were looking at rising floodwaters. I've actually been in Cabinet today to brief Cabinet about the situation, so I probably need to catch up on a few of those details. But certainly it's still a serious situation, and with the fact that we are still seeing rain in some of these areas means that the floodwaters will be quite slow to subside. So, I mean, more than anything, I just really feel for the people who are going through this, because I met a woman this morning in Windsor who, was looking at her home and it's actually worse than the floodwaters she's experienced earlier in the year. And there are some people who are going through floods for the fourth time in 18 months. So it's a real load on people, and I want to make clear that we're standing in support of people through this long road to recovery.
Minister, do you have any update for us on the status of that cargo ship, the Portland Bay, the one that we've been reporting on today, stranded off the New South Wales coast?
Yeah, the latest information that I have is that the situation has stabilised, and again, I really want to pay tribute to the incredible work that people did to stabilise that vessel. When I first heard about this yesterday morning, it was looking very worrying about the possibility of that ship running aground. And with this kind of weather, it's obviously not certain where things will end up, but we do feel more confident about the ship and its crew now than we were even late last night. So again, I probably need to get a further update of that in terms of what's happened this morning while I've been in Cabinet, but things were looking much more promising this morning. So congratulations to the crew and all involved in stabilising that ship.
And just finally, Minister, you did mention that you've been in constant contact with the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, while he's been overseas. We have seen some barbs coming from the opposition today about him being out of the country at this time, at this emergency. Is it expected that the Prime Minister will be hitting the ground to see the damage for himself?
Absolutely, and look, I think it's a bit ridiculous to criticise the Prime Minister for undertaking an overseas trip that began before the floods even were warned of, let alone began. And I think the work that he's been doing overseas is incredibly important to our country and restoring our reputation internationally. And I know that he will be on the ground very quickly on his return to the country, and I'm looking forward to being there with him.
Minister Murray Watt, really appreciate you taking the time to give us an update here on Newsday. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ash.